This morning we're going to look at getting all of the database names, specifically for like an array, so that we can use for configurations, which for those of you who are familiar with a lot of administration tasks, you'll see the advantage to this right here. So there's two ways, there's actually several ways to do this, but there's two ways I'm going to cover. First of all, the most obvious one is not going to allow us to output it to an array. So show DBS, great, but if I were to say variable x and I were to say show DBS, we're going to get an error, and that's not going to allow us to store this in an array. So the first one that we're going to do, now notice that I'm under the database of SQL in 6, is I'm going to say variable and I'm going to do DBS, so databases, well, let's do databases, DTBS, there, and we're going to do DTBS, and we're going to set this equal to db.getmongo.getDBNames. So this is one of the ways in which we can do this. And what this does is it returns, as you can see, the names of the databases in an array. So that's one way to go about doing that. Another way to go about doing that, which I will precurse this with, you must use the admin database. And I'll show you why in a second. Is that we can actually get the database names and size information by using a db.run command. So if I were to say variable, and this time I'm going to do dtbs, and I'm going to do admin, and I say this equals db.run command, and then I say list databases 1. Now if I call DTBS and I do admin, I get the information, for instance, total size, size on disk, and whether it's empty or not. Now, if I were to sit there and I were to use SQL in 6, and then I were to call this, and let's call this variable test. If I then call test, you'll notice I get error message, access denied, use admin database. And the reason is because that one requires us to use the administration database. And now note, if the administration database doesn't give us permissions, it's part of the reason why. So those are two ways in which you can get all the databases. You can store it in an object, and then if you need to do some iterating over the databases, you can do that. It's also very useful for configuration, as you see per server. It's very helpful to have saved.